There's a version of spiritual practice that we all imagine, and there's nothing wrong with it. It involves candles and cushions and hours of silence, a kind of serene detachment from the noise of ordinary life. And most of us take one look at that version and quietly decide that it's not for us. We already have enough on our plates. And if you're in recovery, you're going to meetings and repairing relationships and getting to work on time. So what you don't need is another thing to do. But what if the practice you need doesn't look anything like that? What if it doesn't start with achievement, but with your attention? I'm Stephen, and this is Spiritual Teamwork. I believe that recovery is a type of spiritual path. And in recovery, a lot of people are told that spirituality is essential to recovery. I believe spirituality is an essential part of recovery. But what we're rarely told is what it looks like on a Tuesday afternoon when we're tired and irritable, and the last thing we feel like doing is sitting quietly with ourselves. And there's a gap between you need a practice and here's how to have one. And that's where a lot of people give up. What I want to do today is try to close that gap just a little. And this is not going to be the ideal version of a spiritual practice because I'm not a spiritual guru. But this is an actual version, and hopefully it can help you see what it looks like in real life on a regular day for someone who doesn't have a meditation cushion and doesn't particularly want one. The first thing I want to say is that a spiritual practice is not a performance. This isn't something that we do in order to prove that we're serious about our recovery, or that we're spiritual for that matter, or that we're on the right path. It's not a box that you check. What it is repeatedly turning your attention back to what is real. In every spiritual tradition that I have read draws from something similar to this, just different language. The Stoics teach about training yourself to notice what is in your control and release what is not. The Buddhist practice returning to the present moment. The Christian contemplative tradition has an invitation to inner stillness, practicing presence. And the Taoists have an idea of moving with what is rather than against it. And these aren't competing philosophies. The present moment, the inner life, the honest look at what is what all of these are trying to get us to do. And for those of us in recovery, that's not abstract. We've spent years running from ourselves and what actually is. I mean, we know what it's like. We know what the cost is of not living in the present moment. A spiritual practice is simply making the choice to stop running. Not just once at the moment of surrender, but again and again, every day in small ways. But here's where it gets difficult. And I want to be really honest about this. When we start to sit still and get quiet, the things we've been carrying tend to surface. And we brush up against parts of ourselves that we might not have made peace with yet. This is that unlived life, and it's waiting in the basement. And sometimes it's not pleasant, but it is important. From what I've experienced, there are going to be times when that feels like you've not even started your practice. You're going to think you're back at square one, and you're going to think everybody around you knows that you are, but you're not. And they don't, because everyone else will see your progress long before you do. What I've found is the instinct when discomfort arises in practice is to stop What we want to do is find a reason why it's not working for me. This isn't right. Or life is too fast paced right now. I'll start when life settles down. Here's the deal. Life doesn't settle down. And the practice that's calling us to set with our discomfort is the same one that teaches us that we can set with our discomfort. Our recovery has already given us a preparation for this. We've already had to sit with the hard stuff just by getting clean. A spiritual practice is just a way of bringing that same capacity into our daily lives. So what can it actually look like? It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be elaborate. But what it needs to be is consistent and honest. And for some of us, that honesty comes in the morning, especially for me. It can be just 5 minutes of quiet before the day begins with everything that's going on. It doesn't necessarily have to be meditation in a formal sense. Just sitting down and breathing, noticing where we are. Some people call it prayer. Others hold on to it as an act of awareness. But the tradition doesn't matter, but the intention matters. Knowing that I am here, I am paying attention, I am willing to be present right now. For some people, it's walking, a walk without headphones. But the attention is focused inwards as much as it is outwards. Walking becomes a prayer the more we pay attention to it. Some people journal, but it's not analysis or therapy. It's just a daily act of noticing. What am I feeling right now? What am I avoiding? What am I grateful for? That's one of my favorites. I will just start on a page and fill it up with things I'm grateful for. I am grateful for our yard. I am grateful for my hands. I am grateful I can write this. We're not trying to come up with questions to answer as much as just being present for the moment and recognizing what is. And the good news is, none of what I just said requires you to have a spiritual director or a teacher or years of training. You can breathe, you can walk, and you can write. So just showing up consistently is the key. The other thing is, don't look for something dramatic to happen. Because after 6 years of meditation, I still yet to have something dramatic happen. Now it may. I'm not telling you it won't. Just don't expect something dramatic. Don't expect to wake up one morning and be enlightened. Just be present. All right, this is my inside tip. If you're looking for an app, I like Insight Timer, which is free to an extent. And you can find a lot of recovery meditations and all other spiritual paths on this app. It's $70 a year if you want to use the paid side of it, which gives you a lot more stuff. For Buddhist practice, there's the Plum Village app. I like it because it's simple. It's from Thich Nhat Hanh's Plum Village. It has a bell of mindfulness that you can set to ring randomly throughout the day or every hour on the hour, just to remind you to be present. And while I was recording this, mine went off. For Christians, there's a centering prayer app that I like from Contemplative Outreach. In all honesty, there are dozens of apps. Find what works for you if you want to use an app. There's apps for journaling. There's apps for walking at a correct pace. So whatever works for you, find it. Whatever path you're on, mix it up. If that's what works for you, switch between traditions. So if you listen to this very long, you're going to find out I switch between traditions. One of the most useful ways that I can frame this is that a spiritual practice is not a program. It's more like a relationship, because relationships aren't rigid, they're consistent. Relationships survive missed days and difficult seasons. They get deeper not through being perfect, but through coming back to it and learning to be part of it. And we don't fail at a spiritual practice by not showing up for 3 days. We don't even fail by not returning for a long time. That door is always open, no matter where we're at in our lives. A spiritual practice is always just a moment and a breath away. What we're building over weeks and months and years of practice is not a catalog of experiences or accomplishments. We're building a different relationship with our inner life. We're learning to be present without flinching and noticing what we're going through without making some self-recriminating judgment against how we feel at the moment. We're just learning to be. And that's not a small thing. And I'm laughing because I used several curse words the first time I recorded this. For those of us in recovery, these are some of the most revolutionary skills that we can develop. Learning to sit with ourselves is hard, but it's essential. So let me leave you with this. Think about this for the next 2 weeks before the next podcast comes out. What would it mean to give 5 minutes to your inner life today? I'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.